Call the meeting to order of the Wilmington City Council. I'd like to welcome all those who are with us here this evening and all those who are watching us at home on TV. Thank you for taking an interest in your government. At this time, I'd like to introduce Reverend James Jameson, WPD chaplain, for the invocation. I'll ask everybody to stand and remain standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance. Reverend, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Let us look to the Lord. Gracious Father in heaven, we do thank you, God, today. And Lord, we praise you for this great opportunity, God, to come together and reason together. Before I begin, Lord, this evening, God, I just want to, Lord, ask your blessings upon those of us in this room that are going through. Those of this room, God, are stressed out. Those in the room feel like they're doing 100 miles an hour, God, and just ain't enough time in a day, God. And as I was listening to a young lady talking about it today, God, I thought about how I rushed here myself, God, and and Lord, give us wisdom beyond our years, God, and help us, God, to come to conclusions, God, that is reasonable to everyone. Bless us, God, in a mighty way today. Strengthen us. Bless this board, God, this council, God, that's doing a marvelous work, God, and with all the cities in turmoil, God, they manage, God, to keep ours, Lord, relatively safe and sound. And we thank you, God, for the wisdom that you have given them. We thank you for our emergency services, fire department, and police department that, Lord, have been keeping us and blessing us in all the agencies, God. And we thank you, God, for the work you're doing with the homeless population, God. There's so many things I can talk about, God, but Lord, this is not the time for that. So we just thank you and we praise you for all that you do. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'd like to recognize that Mayor Pro Tem Haynes would not be joining us this evening. She is out of town. We have two presentations this evening. Our first presentation is the Tree City USA presentation. At this time, I'd like to recognize Mr. Bill Walker from the North Carolina Forest Service and Mr. Aaron Reese, our Forestry Management Supervisor. Bill, welcome.
Mayor, Congress, Councilman, excuse me.
It's called Congressman?
Been watching the news lately. On behalf of the National Arbor Day Foundation and the North Carolina Forest Service, I am honored to recognize the city of Wilmington for achieving its 20th Tree City USA Award. Wilmington is one of 75 cities and towns in North Carolina and one of over 3,600 cities in the nation to receive this honor annually. To receive this recognition, Wilmington must have its public tree ordinance in place and a tree board to define those ordinances. And as always, they have done it. Now, this recognition of the Tree City USA Award also counts to help you achieve that on an annual basis. The Tree City USA is a partnership between the North Carolina Forest Service and the National Arbor Day Foundation. Awards are presented annually to cities and towns that demonstrate a commitment to making their communities more livable by planting and caring for their trees. I am proud, and it is my distinct honor to present Wilmington with its 20th Tree City USA Award. Mr. Mayor, Councilman, if you would come up, please like to recognize Mr. Aaron, and we'll give you your 20th year award.
I just want to say a few things. First, to Bill and the North Carolina Forestry Service, thank you for the recognition and thank you for everything you do in advising us in the city on things that we can do to improve our forest, our urban forest, and the control burns you've done out at Halliburton the last several years, which are actually a lot of fun for those who have not seen a forest burned up. These guys do it in a very professional way, but they do it for the health the forest, and what that has been able to do out there at Halliburton has been unbelievable. And we appreciate you helping us with that. And also with Aaron and his staff and everything that you folks do every single day to take care of the trees and the tree canopy, the urban tree canopy that we have in the community. And I know how sensitive that is, because as trees get old and some of them die off and you have to cut them back or cut them down, it gets tough, but we try to replant as quickly as we can. And lastly, I just want to say thank you to the Tree Commission, our Tree Commission, for all the hard work that they've done. They instilled a lot of their policies and advocacy into the Land Development Code. One of the things that we heard from our citizens was the fact that they wanted us to protect more trees and plant more trees. And we've been able to do that. And the challenge that we had as a city through our tree initiative was to plant 1,739 trees in the first year. And I think we blew by that by several thousand. And the community that came together, the Alliance for Cape Fear Trees, and all of the different groups that came together to support this initiative has been outstanding. And I just want to say thank you again to both of you, but also to all the advocacy groups and all of the citizens that have come forward to tell us and to show us and to show up early in the mornings when we're giving those trees away, to come out there and get those trees and help plant those trees in our community. So thank you very much. Outstanding work, and hopefully we'll have another 20 years of somebody coming up here giving us a good recommendation. So thank you. Appreciate it, Bill. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Madam Clerk, we have Madam Clerk. I'm going to administer the oath of office to our City Attorney, Meredith T. Everhart. Meredith, come forward. Excuse me? Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Meredith T. Everhart,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the United States,
and that I will support and maintain
and that I will support and maintain
the Constitution of the laws of the State of North Carolina,
the Constitution and laws of the State of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office
as City Attorney
as City Attorney
under the Council Manager form of government for the City of Wilmington.
under the Council Manager form of government for the City of Wilmington.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Meredith.
Thank you, sir. Our next item of business is our consent agenda, items 1 through 8. Are there any items that any council member would like to hear separately? If not, what are the wishes of this council?
I want to pull C2.
C2? Anybody else? Okay, so we have a motion to approve items 1 through 8, excluding C2. Councilmember Barnett made the motion, second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion, all in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. At this time, I'd like to recognize Councilmember Kevin Spears. Mr. Spears?
Mr. Manager,
Yes, sir.
I was reading through this, and the Elliott Hall belongs to the city.
Yes, sir.
Correct? Right.
Yes, sir.
And we give a significant amount towards the operation of, to the Thalian Hall Association to run Thalian Hall, correct?
Yes, yes, sir. They provide operational services.
Okay. Because I just, there was a few weeks ago, I had an incident where I was coming into Thalian Hall and I was being stopped. And, yeah, I was being stopped and I
By
was,
the security folks?
no, not by security,
Oh,
by,
okay.
by Thalian Hall employees who were adamant about who I was. And I said, it's okay, you don't need to know who I am. I got access. I'm going places that you can't even go, but they were really adamant about who I was, and they even stopped me when I came out. And I tried to, but it's been rectified, so don't worry about it. But I just wanted to get a better understanding, and hopefully others will get an understanding about people who can go places that you can't even go. You probably shouldn't even question those folks.
Yes, sir, I would agree that's the case.
All right. I'll make a motion to pass.
Okay, we have a
C2.
motion by Councilmember Spears, second by Councilmember Barnett. Discussion, all in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. That brings us to our next item of business, which is our public information segment. No public information speakers have signed up to speak this evening, and that will take us now to our public hearings. Yes, sir, I'm sorry. Mr. Rivenbark?
I had the good fortune today to be at Hoggard High School and was interviewed, and I must say it was a very pleasant interview by some of the best and brightest that Hoggard has, and 6 of them are here tonight. I was fortunate enough to be with Kaylee, Ella, Mia, Madison, Molly, Catherine, and Austin, and it was part of their curriculum, the courses they're taking, and they're here in the chambers tonight, most of them, and I just wanted to tell them how nice that was, and I hope I get asked back again. Thank you very much.
Very nice.
Stand up a second, let them see you. Thank you. Thank you.
It's a good civics lesson. So we have our public hearings, item PH1A. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and read all of the items because we will have one public hearing for all of those items. No action will be taken because this is just a public hearing on the budget. Item PH1A is an ordinance making appropriations to the general fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023. Item PH1B is the ordinance making appropriations to the grant projects, financial plans, enterprise funds, debit service fund, and special tax district for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023. Item PH1C is an ordinance making appropriations to the capital project funds for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023. And item PH1D is an ordinance amending various chapters of the City of Wilmington fee schedule for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023. At this time, I'd like to recognize our city manager, Mr. Tony Caudill. Mr. Caudill.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Given that we've already had a presentation, a rather in-depth presentation of this product at a previous meeting, we'll have Ms. Mortel overview briefly the proposed budget prior to the public hearing. Ms. Mortel.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Tonight we have the public hearing, and I just want to be able to summarize briefly what is in the budget. We remain flat at our tax rate of 39.5 cents. Our total budget is $351 million, with 42% of that being the general fund at $148 million. We use 4 building blocks to make decisions: council strategies we developed in November, our core values that we rolled out this fiscal year, our draft focus areas for the strategic plan, and the economic drivers that we knew at the time. Our employees are our most valuable asset for the city, and in this market, labor market that is ever changing, we have created an adjustment to the pay scale as well as a performance merit pool. With the budget, we ask for highlights, fee highlights, if there's any changes that are required. We have several for our enterprise funds to remain solvent. Storewater is following their financial model of increasing the ERUs by 1%. Recycling has a lot of inflation issues as well as some decisions made for their fleet, their automated side loaders, and we also had to address some vacancy issues with CDL drivers. We have parking, which is second year in a 3-year plan. It was recognized by the Downtown Parking Board, or Advisory Board. We have a brand-new electric vehicle charging fee, which is going to be citywide. We put it in parking. And we have just a couple things that are increasing on and off-street parking. And then golf is also hit by inflation contracts, as well as fuel and other things that we had to address. And they have it 2% across the board. And in the general fund, we have inland greens that we raised by $1. Some milestones that, just to remind you, next Friday, the 26th, we have a work session for markup if there's questions by council and if you guys want to discuss some things in the budget. We have finalization of the adoption in June. We have 2 readings, one in the first meeting and then one in the second. Sorry, I have a cold. And that would be it.
Are there any questions from staff? Mr. Waddell?
So if I have some items within regards to some of these PH1, PH1A, B, C, we'd be fine to save those until the budget work session next Friday, right? No need to belabor any issues I might have now for what we can talk about next Friday.
If you have questions, it would be great for you to get them to us so we can prepare them for you.
Some of them are questions, some of them are issues I've raised in the past that I mean, really going to be made decisions up here. But yeah, so that appropriate time is probably next Friday
That would be your call.
getting the nod. All right, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, Laura. At this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing and ask if anybody in the public wishes to come forward and speak on any of the items that I've just mentioned into the record. Please come forward and state your name for the record, and the clerk will set the time clock. Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to ask Madam Clerk, have you received any additional commentary?
No, sir, I have not.
Sorry. No additional commentary? Okay. Are there any further questions from council? Okay. I will now close the public hearing, and we'll continue on with our workshop in the latter part of this month. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item PH2, which is an ordinance directing the housing inspector to vacate, close, and repair or demolish a dwelling at 312 South 14th Street as unfit for human habitation pursuant to Article 5, Chapter 16 of the City Code, and directing that a notice be placed thereon prohibiting its use or occupancy. At this time, I'd like to recognize the City Manager, Mr. Caudle. Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Brian Renner, our Chief Code Enforcement Officer, will overview this item.
Evening, Mayor, Council. The property we're going to talk about tonight is 1312 South 14th Street. So this is a single-family, single-story house. It was built in 1957. It's currently vacant. The owners, we have the heirs of Ernest Benjamin Davis, and this includes Linwood Davis and his wife, Marjorie Davis. We have been in contact with the family, and they're currently pursuing a partition. Their goal has been, since we started these conversations, was to sell the property, and they're moving forward with that. This is a view from 14th Street. So our initial inspection on this property took place on August 25th of 2021. One of our code enforcement officers saw the condition of the house. We pursued a case on it. We took it to our housing code hearing back in June of 2022. And that order to repair or demolish that building expired on December 23rd of 2022. The tax value of the building is $71,000. Our estimated cost to repair that is $43.81, which puts us at 57%, which by the city's minimum housing code would make this a dilapidated building. These are the sections of the minimum housing code that we had. And we'll look at some photos and discuss that. So this is the exterior. On the back side of the house, there's a pretty large hole in the roof. This is inside the house. The floors are very unstable. Navigating this house is a little tricky when you're not quite sure where to step. This is that back side of the house I was talking about where we see there's been a hole in the roof for some time. Conditions of the floors. Condition of the bathroom, water intrusion through the ceiling. And then the front door has been kicked in a few times. We're in contact with the family. We've secured it and they've secured it on a few occasions, but we're continuing to monitoring that. It is currently secure, but a part of this ordinance includes our authority to keep that building secure should it become unsecured again. And then we're looking at a 90-day to repair or demolish the dwelling. As I said, I'm in contact with the family and their attorney. They're in the process of pursuing a partition. My conversation with the attorney is that this should move fairly quickly because the family's done a lot of research into all the heirs on this property. The taxes are paid up to date, our nuisance liens are up to date, and there is a $7,500 citation that we would work with the family on once the property is brought into compliance or sold. So I'm here if there's any questions about this, but as I said, we're looking for 90 days for some action on this property.
Mr. Anderson.
I'm a little not up on my real estate law. What is a partition?
Partition is a legal process that allows somebody who has fractional ownership to basically sue their family members and force a sale of the property.
As many as we've heard of these, this is the first time I've heard that word. Is that because they just have good legal counsel, or it seems interesting that after as many years up here and seeing these, I've never heard that.
We work with a lot of family members and try to work with them on finding a resolution that works best for them. And this property owner has decided that a partition to separate and sell the property is the most effective method. We have several properties that are going through partition proceedings. You just haven't seen them.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Barnett.
Yeah. I went to a workshop in Winston-Salem just a few weeks ago, well, about a month ago. And one of the sessions I went to was about people doing that partition piece. And one of the scary things that they mentioned to me was that it's an opportunity like to gentrify a neighborhood, you know, where they kind of split the family, and then this one guy petitions everybody, and he kind of buys them out, and then somebody else comes in and sells it at an astronomical price. Is that what's happening here?
No, that's not what happened here. This isn't an investor buying the family out and then forcing a partition. This is the family doing the partition because they're not able to make decisions cohesively as a family unit about the property.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, cool. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, sir. No, I'm sorry. We have Mr. Ravenbart. Brian?
At the 90 days, that's the sunset, what'll occur? We've gone through this so many times that I just want to be clear at the end of 90 days if nothing's been done.
At the end of 90 days, my office could move forward with demolition of the structure. Obviously, if they're in the midst of a sale and there's a new buyer or the family is able to start making repairs, we would work with them. The 90 days is essentially a cap before we can do anything. A lot of times with these types of properties, we see good intentions and then they fall through. So we have to move in and take care of it because nobody else will. I'm hopeful that within 90 days, we'll see a sale of this property and somebody starting to renovate.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Spears?
But you said the property's secure, right? So with it being secured, does that not offset the 90 days? Like, it's not a danger because it's secure, correct?
It's a danger in the way it currently sits. There's a very large cat population around that property, which tends to mean there's a very large rodent population around that property. And we have seen that front door kicked in and the back door kicked in multiple times.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Brian. At this time, I'd like to recognize the owners, if the owners are in the hall. Seeing none,
I will open the public hearing and ask if anybody in the public wishes to speak on item PH2. Madam Clerk, have you received any information or additional commentary?
No, sir, have not.
Okay, are there any further questions from council? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for the wishes of council. We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Anderson, second by Councilmember Rivenbark. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? The item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? We have a motion made by Councilmember Waddell, second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? The item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item PH3, which is an ordinance directing the housing inspector to vacate, close, and repair or demolish a dwelling at 1208 South Fifth Avenue as unfit for human habitation pursuant to Article 5, Chapter 16 of the Wilmington City Code, and directing that a notice be placed thereon prohibiting its use or occupancy. And this time I'd like to recognize the city manager, Mr. Caudle. Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Renner will once again overview this item for us.
Good evening. Again, this is 1208 South Fifth Avenue. This is a 20 square foot, single family, single story house. Looks like it used to have a beauty shop attached to it. There's a typo on there. This is actually built in 1940. This is a vacant house. The property owners, the heirs of Samson M. Johnson, and we've included Tierra Bonite, Shanika Johnson, and Arlene Johnson as known heirs. This is a view from South Fifth Avenue. We started this case back in January of 2021. This again was from a code enforcement officer's observation as to the condition of that property. We took it to administrative hearing in May of 2022. And then we had an order to repair or demolish that expired in December of 2022. We have been in contact with Tierra Bonite over the course of this case. Based on the officer's conversations with her, it has always been to sell the property. It seems like it's been the intention, which has not occurred. Here are the findings of fact. We see that the building's value is $99,600. Our estimated cost for rehabbing is $64,511, which puts it at 65%, which would make this dilapidated by the city's minimum housing code. These are the sections of the minimum housing code. And then as we go into the house, we'll see this has actually been boarded by the city. We're having a lot of vagrant issues around this property. And so this is just showing you the conditions on the exterior. On the interior, it's very full. It's about waist deep full of just items and a lot of water intrusion coming in through the roof. Here's examples of those roof issues. Portions of the back side of the house are completely collapsed. This is an example of that. And we can see the rot on the framing. And another portion of the roof collapse. So as I said, we have been in contact with the family, and the ongoing intention has been to sell the property. However, we have not seen any forward momentum towards that. The authority that we're looking at in this ordinance is, again, to keep the building secured. It is currently secured. However, we have had a lot of issues in surrounding properties with people entering them, and we just want to keep an eye on this one. And then we're looking at 90 days as well for the owner to take action to either repair or demolish the dwelling before we would consider taking anything. I'm here if there's any questions.
Any questions of Brian? Yes, sir. Mr. Barnett?
I'm sorry. It's a follow-up with what we talked about. I went back and looked at some of the information I learned from the workshop that we did at the NCL conference. And they talk about exploited partitions. It's where, you know, somebody, a person without scruples, let's say, he would encourage a family member to sell his section or buy his section, and then he would in turn buy the other parts and then sell the house to somebody else and make a big profit off of it. And I guess the question I want to ask is not necessarily related to this property, but are we seeing that a lot here in Wilmington? Do you know of?
I would say not to my knowledge. Typically what we see, we're dealing with these vacant, dilapidated structures. We see a lot more of family members deciding to sell because they either don't want to or cannot maintain the property when we're talking about these dilapidated, abandoned buildings. I would say I have not seen an exploited partition that you're referring to in which an investor forces it. I haven't personally seen it. That doesn't mean it's not happening. It's just not something that's come across through our office. Most people will sell on a quit claim, or they'll get a non-warranty deed and sell it. So we do see some sales of air properties, but they're typically more of the simple air properties. Complicated air properties tend to have to go through a partition or a tax sale in order to clear title.
Right. Okay. All right, thanks.
Any other questions for Brian? Okay, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
This time I'd like to recognize the property owner if the property owner is in the hall.
I'm Taria Balknight. I wanted to come forth and just let you all know that we are trying to work on the sale of this property in the midst of the plan that the code enforcement had worked out with me. The companion of my brother passed away, so we're trying to get that will and all that stuff situated, and it kind of threw us back a little bit. We are also working with an attorney because we do have heirs, and those heirs are under the age of 65. So we have to make sure that there are no additional heirs that are going to be added once the property is sold. But we are trying to sell the property. When code enforcement gets in contact with me about boarding the property, removing trash or whatever, I do try to comply with that. I just did have the grass cut, and on both properties, on my neighbor's property also, and trying to keep the trash and stuff up. I did, when they presented it to me about boarding up the building, I was working with Mr. Sims, and I told him, you all know how you want it, so please just board it up. I do not live in the area anymore. I moved back to Pittsburgh, so I come back and forth. But we do want to sell the property. I do apologize. My brother was a retired veteran and didn't know he had that much stuff in there, but we do want to sell the property. And Miss Susan Carner is our neighbor. Her building is like maybe a foot. So I was trying to work with her because demolishing the building, I don't know how that's going to affect her property. We were trying to sell it together as, two properties, but sell it at the same time.
So excuse me, ma'am. So the neighbor, your neighbor?
Yes.
That's adjacent to you?
Yes.
Is also trying to sell her property?
Yes.
In tandem together? Do y'all have the same real estate company, or y'all trying to do it on your own?
Yes, we have talked to the same real estate company. She met with code enforcement, I think it was one day last week, and she was informed that the code enforcement said that someone they knew may want to buy the property. I'm not sure of that, but we do want to try to sell it together because it's like A and B unit. Her father sold it to my brother, sold his part to my brother, and then he kept his portion. So
Understood. So how many heirs are there in this whole process? And I guess that's one question. Then the other question would be, does your neighbor also have to sell to make this sale of your property with your heirs viable? I mean, can you sell?
I can sell without hers, but I feel like it would be a disadvantage to her because she has basically not as bad as my ordinance is, but she does have things that she has to repair on her portion too, or sell. So we talked last week, and we both want to sell. I think her heirs are pretty much on board. Ours are too. It's just the fact they are under that age bracket. They're much older than these young ladies are like 35, and so they can still bear children. So we have to go through the guardian ad litem, and like he said, kind of like a petition, but not really, because they do want to sell. But I know that it is definitely a thorn in the flesh of code enforcement, but they have really worked with us tremendously. But whenever I met with them, I thought the process would go fast, never dealt with the whole air thing, and it's just been a lot. But I do want to say that Mr. Sims has really worked with my family, trying to make sure that we do what's best for the family as far as either if we can get it sold or get it repaired. But we can't get it repaired.
I understand. How many, I'm sorry, you may have mentioned it, and I may have not picked it up. How many heirs are involved on your side?
It's just 3, it would just be 2, because it's 2 siblings. But one lives in Indiana.
Okay.
And that's kind of been the hard part of trying to get that sibling. Then when the mother passed, it kind of like put everything on brakes.
So there's only 2 heirs
Yes.
that have to sign the deed
Yes.
to be able to transfer title?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Mr. Waddell?
Yes, ma'am. I know you said y'all have no interest in repairing, you're just interested in selling it, getting the heirs together and then doing a partition and selling the property, which I certainly understand.
Yes.
Would you like more time before the 90 days, like longer than the 90 days in order to make that a viable option for you?
I would love that, because I believe I'm going to need that.
Yeah, those partitions take a while.
But I want to be in compliance with, whatever code enforcement needs me to do. But I would love more time because I know it's a process. The attorney that we spoke with said once it can be sold, but she said we would have to set up a trust, and it's a lot of steps to it. Didn't realize all of that. But yes, I would love more time if I'm allowed, and I will make sure, like I said, if you had up-to-date pictures, the grass is cut, and I have someone coming to get the trash and making sure, that it stays the way code enforcement wants it, other than repairing the inside.
Yeah, sounds like she's making all the moves to get it done. It's just a lengthy process. So I'd have no issue giving longer time.
So do you have a local attorney that you're using, or somebody in?
I have one that's in Raleigh, North Carolina, but the real estate agent that I have been dealing with said that he knew one that was in, I think it's Burgall or somewhere right in there, that handles real estate in New Hanover County, and so I'm going to reach out to him to see, what he can offer.
Brian, real quick, I don't know if you can grab the microphone right there. So in respect to giving this lady another 90 days, in regards to securing the property or boarding it up, whatever you have to do, are we there yet, or you're about to, can we start that process, at least boarding it up, making certain that it's secure?
The property is currently secure. What this ordinance allows is, if something were to happen, say somebody were to break back in, as in your neighbor's property, someone has broken into that and we're having to work with them to get that secured. This ordinance authorizes us to immediately secure that without having to go through the 15-day notice period. Okay. But also, if I were to make a recommendation on this, I would look at maybe modifying this ordinance to reflect 180 days to allow for you to go through that process. And obviously, as you know, we'll work with you if that were to expire before we would demolish. Our demolition processes are not fast.
Okay.
But we do want to work with you, as you know, as Officer Sims has.
Yes.
So that would be my recommendation, to build in more time, but still moving forward with the ordinance would be 180 days.
Okay. Mr. Barnett?
I'm sorry, I forgot to put the mic on. I was going to agree with Councilman Waddell that we definitely want to extend you the extra time. And I was also going to say to you, thank you for showing up, because oftentimes we have these come before us and nobody ever shows up. And so we admonish that, and we're definitely going to work with you.
Thank you. And I was not aware of the May meeting in 2022. When I went back and read all that, I was like, oh my God. But I if I was aware, I would try my best to be here. Even though I'm 3 hours away, I was like, let me get here just so they can see my face and know that we're actually trying. I don't want you to think that we're not trying to get this situation rectified.
Very good. Mr. Spears.
So, Mr. Mayor, do we need a substitute motion, or do we just need to make an amendment?
I'm going to ask the city attorney to give us a recommendation as to the legality of it.
Yes, sir. Sorry, after you close the public hearing, when it comes time to vote, then you just make a substitute motion to amend it to 180 days.
Take the action in 180 days?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. That's about 6 months, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback off of what Councilman Barnett said. We do appreciate you showing up and showing some concern for your property and working with code enforcement to rectify the issue. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to now open up the public hearing and ask if anybody in the public wishes to speak on this item. Okay. Seeing none, are there any additional comments that the clerk may have received? Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for the wishes of council, which I believe would be a motion, because there wasn't a motion already on the floor, so we'll make the motion, whoever makes it, for 180 days. So we have a motion made by Councilmember Barnett, second by Councilmember Waddell, and your motion is to extend the 180 days. Okay.
In the 180 days.
Very good. Okay. Everybody understand? All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Councilmember Barnett, second by Councilmember Spears. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to our next item of business, which is our ordinances. Item 01 is an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city to rezone property containing 2.44 acres of land located at 2402, 2406, and 2420 South 17th Street and 1608 Wellington Avenue from O&I Office and Institutional District and CBCD Community Business Conditional District to CBCD Community Business Conditional District for general retail use with associated fuel pumps and a restaurant. This is being heard on a second reading. At this time, I'd like to recognize our city manager, Mr. Cottle. Mr. Cottle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As this is the second reading, as you noted, we will not have a presentation. We have staff available to answer questions, but we will not be doing a presentation on it.
Okay, very good. What are the wishes of council in respect to the ordinance? We have a motion to approve by Councilman Waddell, second by Councilman Barnett. Discussion. All in favor of that motion? Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Mr. Rivenbark.
Being it's on a second reading, I hope everyone understands how it got here. I just wanted to make a comment tonight about any small business or any business of any size. If you're operating under a lease from your landlord and you have, let's just say, a 3-year lease with an option to renew for 3 years or whatever, when it comes time to renew that lease or when that initial lease term is up, by all means contact the landlord and know for sure that you're going to be able to get that lease renewed, because what's happened here, we've got people out there, in effect, they're on a 30-day lease, because once that lease expires, you're only good for 30 days. And that's what's happened here, and it's unfortunate. I know I do this for a living, and I've been a tenant before. And after, the 5 years or the 10 years goes by and everybody's, singing off the same sheet of music and you think everything's okay, this is what can happen. And I have no problem at all with this gentleman selling his property. I believe wholeheartedly in property rights, and he has every right to do this. It just doesn't feel right, and I took great exception to it, but nonetheless, he has every right to do that. But anybody that can hear me, if you're working on a lease or you had a lease and you're not sure what the status is, check into it, because the lease it has language in there that a good lease has language in there that protects the landlord as well as the tenant. So if you're not sure, contact an attorney or contact your landlord, and if they refuse to extend your lease or whatever, that should raise a red flag to you. You want to be on a lease. So thank you for allowing me to say that.
All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes 4-2. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item O2, which is an ordinance making supplemental appropriations in the amount of $6,681 in the committed revenue funds for the purchase of a new multi-stack cable machine at the Sharondale Morgan Fitness Center. At that time, I'd like to recognize our city manager, Mr. Caudle. Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Amy Beatty, our Community Services Director, will overview this item.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. As the mayor said, this ordinance appropriates $6,861 to replace a multi-stack cable machine in the city's public fitness facility. The reason for the replacement is because the manufacturer no longer makes repair parts, and the machine is in disrepair. $1 of every membership fee sold to the fitness center is set aside in a committed revenue fund, the purpose which is to make repairs, improvements, and maintenance to the facility. This revenue fund was set aside to make sure the cost of certain budgetary items, instead of being funded from the city's general fund, were funded from the facility users. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions that you have.
No questions, but everybody will be there working out at the gym. Mrs. Spears?
I work out at that gym. Amy, $1, and I was looking at that during the public hearing portion where we're talking about fee schedule. $1. We need to up that, just a tad. I'm just putting that out there because the Sharondale Morgan Boxing Fitness Center is a extraordinary deal for citizens of Wilmington, and we could probably up participation from city residents. But we are a little outdated over there. And if we put some more money in the kitty to do more stuff, we could get up to speed.
I appreciate your comments. It's definitely an amazing deal. The cost of a membership is very low out there. In fiscal year 2013, when my department proposed amending the fee schedule to set aside these $1 to $5, whatever they are, fees across Parks and Recreation to be set aside to stick with those particular facilities. Again, as I said before, it was to make sure that the people who are going to the gym or going to an amphitheater that are enjoying those facilities, that those are the ones that pay for improvements instead of a general taxpayer who doesn't typically go to those facilities. But it did divert money away from the general fund because previously all Parks and Recreation fees went into the general fund. So I have a responsibility to my budget director and city manager to be mindful of that, but I would agree that we need to periodically take a look and see if we need to raise those committed revenue fee portions.
Right. So not necessarily upping the fee, but upping the allocation for what goes to.
I understand what you're asking, yes.
Okay, all right, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, Amy. Okay, what are the wishes of council in respect to the ordinance? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Barnett, second by Councilmember Spears. Discussion, all in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Councilmember Waddell, second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion, all in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item O3, which is an ordinance to amend the Streets and Sidewalks Capital Projects Fund, the Parks and Recreation Capital Projects Fund, and the Public Facilities Capital Project Fund for the Limited Obligation Bond Series 2023A And I will say that the net budget impact is $385,613. At this time, I'd like to recognize our city manager, Mr. Caudle. Mr. Caudle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jennifer Moretti, our finance director, will overview this item for us.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. The ordinance before you is related to the 2023A Series Limited Obligation Bonds that the city issued on April 26. The principal amount was $23,980,000, with a premium we received of $3.4 million for a total issuance price of $27,387,000. The city received an all-in true interest cost of 3.49% for the 20-year term. The bonds were issued for various capital improvement projects to include the streets and sidewalks, parks and recreation projects, Riverwalk, and the River Lights Fire Station. Staff recommends the passage of this ordinance to record the results of the 2023A Series Limited Obligation Bond issuance. Any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions for Jim? This is good work. That's a good interest rate.
It is for the current times.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Barnett, second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Councilmember Ravenbark, second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item 04A, which is an ordinance appropriating funds to a special purpose fund for housing for chronically homeless persons. And the budget impact is $25,000 to the general fund from authorized proceeds from the sale of 1110 Castle Street. And then item 04B, which is the accompanying item, is a resolution authorizing the award of a contract to Good Shepherd Ministries of Wilmington Incorporated in the amount of $126,578 for pre-development costs associated with the construction of affordable housing for chronically homeless persons at 3939 Carolina Beach Road. At this time, I'd like to recognize our city manager, Mr. Caudle. Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Suzanne Rogers will overview this item for us.
Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Caudle, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As the mayor stated, you have two related items before you that continue past decisions that City Council has made in appropriating the proceeds from the sale of Optimus Park to be used for homeless housing, which a portion of that has already come before you for the Eden Village project, $250,000 and $43,000. And then you have the remainder of those funds of $119,000, of which $18,000 was used to demolish the Carolina Beach Fire Station. And then you had, in your ordinance or your resolution on June 7th, indicated that the remainder of that would be used for the development of housing for the homeless. And so Good Shepherd, as you know, is going to receive that property, and they've asked for funds towards the redevelopment. So there's $25,000 from the proceeds of the sale of the website on Castle Street, and then the Optimus Park funds that would allow them to cover expenses for environmental review and other pre-development costs in preparation for constructing new housing on the Carolina Beach Road site. I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
Suzanne, and I know Katrina's in the back, but the number of units that we're talking about constructing at 3939 Carolina Beach Road, is it 33?
33, if my memory serves me, is what the was brought forward with the rezoning.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, that was my question. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, what are the wishes of council in respect to the ordinance? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Spears, second by Councilmember Rivenbark. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Councilmember Barnett, second by Councilmember Rivenbark. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. Now we'll go to the item 04B, which is the resolution authorizing the award of a contract to Good Shepherd Ministries in the amount of $126,578 for pre-development costs associated with the construction of affordable housing. We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Barnett, second by Councilmember Rivenbark. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. That brings us to our next item of business, which also has an ordinance and an accompanying resolution. Item 05A is an ordinance making supplemental appropriations to the Public Facilities Capital Projects Fund in the amount of $3,062,000 for the River Lights Fire Station project. And item 05B is the resolution authorizing the award of the construction contract for the River Lights Fire Station project to Samet Corporation of Greensboro, North Carolina, in the amount of $7,223,697. At this time, I'd like to recognize our city manager, Mr. Cottle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anthony Gathers, the project manager on this project, will bring this item forward for us.
Welcome, Anthony.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As you may recall, the city entered a development agreement for a multi-use, multi-phase, and multi-use commercial and residential project known as River Lights. As part of that agreement, the developer dedicated and transferred a multi-acceptable 3-acre property sufficient for a multi-bay fire station across the Marina Village commercial development on River Road. The new fire station will be approximately 12,700 square feet and was designated to pursue LEED Silver certification and meet high performance for the new building with regards energy and the environment. Before you tonight is a resolution to authorize the award of the construction contract for the new River Lights Fire Station, number 6, to Samet Corporation of Wilmington, an amount of $7,223,697. 6 bids were received in March. After the post-bid qualification review process, Samet was determined to be the lowest responsive bidder. To award this construction contract and provide funds of 5% construction contingency and the companion ordinance making the supplementary appropriation to the city project fund for the River Lights Fire Station. This project necessary an amount of $3,062,000. City staff requested additional costs to fund from $150,000 of surplus from the recently completed Shipyard Boulevard Fire Station and $2,912,000 from the available debt capacity within the city debt service fund. Staff recommend this approval for both items. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any questions for Anthony? Do we know when, when we award this tonight, we will then begin groundbreaking and getting ready to start construction out there almost?
Yes, sir. We anticipate to start within 60 days.
Within 60 days?
Yes, sir.
Great. And the overall plan, and I see Chief Mason out in the audience, is pretty much the same as we've been seeing all along, that rendering that has been shared with council and I think the neighbors out at River Lights?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Okay, so let's go on to the ordinance. We have a motion approved by Councilmember Barnett, second by Councilmember Spears. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Councilmember Rivenbark, second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. Now the item 05B, which is the resolution authorizing the award of the construction contract for the River Lights Fire Station to Samet Corporation of Greensboro, North Carolina, in the amount of $7,223,697. What is the wishes of council? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Anderson, second by Councilmember Rivenbark. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. That brings us to our last item of business, which is our reports. Item RP1 is council's appointments, committees for boards and commissions. And at this time, I'd like to recognize Councilmember Charlie Rivenbark, who is the chairman of that committee. Mr. Rivenbark.
Thank you, Mayor Sappho. We met on May the 1st of this year. I'm the chairman of that board, and I serve on there with Councilmember Neil Anderson and Councilmember Luke Waddell. The first thing I'd like to report tonight, I offer these up for your consideration. Appoint Emma Saunders to the Convention Center Advisory Committee with a term to expire May the 3rd, 2026. Reappoint Ashley Wilson to the Historic District Overlay, to the Historic Preservation Commission, and Ashley Wilson represent the HDO with a term to expire May the 8th of 2027. Reappoint Kathleen Egan to the Historic Residential Area with a term to expire June 21st, 2027. And reappoint Stephen Sulkey to represent the Resident Overlay of the HDR with a term to expire May the 8th of 2027. The City of Wilmington, New Hanover County Commission for Women, we respectfully request you reappoint Debbie Todd with a term to expire June 18th, 2026. And on the Tree Commission, we offer up to reappoint Thomas Boland with a term to expire June 18th, 2026, and reappoint Alana Seaman with a term to expire June 18th, 2026. And for the Zoning Board of Adjustment, appoint Tyler Newman to replace Mark Saulnier with a term to expire August 15th, 2024, and appoint Maggie Bennington as alternate number 2 on the Board of Adjustment. I make a motion that we approve these recommendations.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Ravenberg, second by Councilmember Barnett. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. This concludes the regular agenda. Are there any items to be brought forward by our city attorney?
No, sir, I'd just like to say thank you very much to you, Mr. Mayor, and to the rest of City Council, and I appreciate the appointment, and I will do my best for you and for the City of Wilmington.
Thank you very much, Meredith. Mr. Manager?
No, sir.
Madam Clerk? Mr. Waddell?
Yeah, I know not many people watch these meetings, and even fewer probably watch them all the way through, online, but I know one person who consistently watches every meeting and watches all the way to the end, and that's my beautiful wife, and it's her birthday today, so I just want to wish her happy birthday, let her know I love her, and I'm going to be home early tonight.
Absolutely. Mr. Barnett?
Yeah, happy birthday. Just two quick things. One, graduations. Kids are graduating. I went to a couple of UNCW's graduations this weekend, and we're just excited about the future, excited about the opportunities that the kids will be having, especially on this Saturday, the 26th. The Glow Academy will have their first graduating class this year, and we're excited about them. And this is an all-girls school, and it's excited about where they're going to go. And then the last thing is last week we had the opportunity to open the food bank, which is second to none in the country. So if you haven't had that opportunity to go by and view the food bank and encourage people to go by and get food, it's a really exciting time. Thank you.
Mr. Ramberg?
Kind of dovetail the report I just made, anybody out there that would like to be involved more so in the city other than just watching us or attending our meetings, we have a number of boards and commissions, and all you got to do, if you live in the city limits, and some of them don't require that, is go on our city website, and there's applications to fill out, pick the board you think you would like. Mrs. Penny Sidbury, our clerk, will get it, and we meet very regular. So get involved. And the other thing, talking about the graduation, we graduated almost 4,000 graduates at UNCW this past weekend. 4,000. That is amazing. That's the greatest, this is big news for us.
Mr. Anderson? Mr. Spears?
First of all, to piggyback off of what Councilman Barnett said, on this Friday, in that class of the first graduating Glow Academy girls, my little sister Jada Spears will be graduating, so congratulations to you, Jada. And I also want to talk about, I had the honor to be the keynote speaker at UNCW's Senior Sankofa ceremony on last Friday, which was such a great honor being an alumni of UNCW. And go Seahawks. And also, hello to the young ladies from John T. Hargett High School. You couldn't pick a better school to attend. But lastly, I just want to, this Sunday was Mother's Day, and Friday was my cousin Ebony's birthday, who has been missing for the past 7 years. And I have never seen such a resilient woman than my aunt, who every year shows up, gets the family together to celebrate Ebony, to keep the memory of Ebony logged in the minds of the citizens of not only Wilmington, the state of North Carolina, the United States, and possibly the world, that we are still looking for Ebony, and we miss Ebony. But on this Mother's Day, my aunt got us together to celebrate Mother's Day and Ebony's birthday, and it was such a good time. I don't know how they can be so strong. And even her daughter was there, who is in college now, possibly her second year in college, and, you know, just to see the smiles on their faces. So I say that to say, you know, just keep pushing. Pastor Jamerson talked about it. You don't know what people are dealing with. Just keep pushing and keep a smile on your face and keep your hopes up high. And that's all I got. Thank you.
With that, thank you for taking an interest in your government. We stand adjourned.